This episode of Nameless was suggested by user XXAussieFozzieX. Thanks for bringing this unsolved John Doe case to my attention. This episode of Nameless contains description of torture and may not be for everyone. Viewer discretion is advised. A case passed down through decades of detectives in a small Canadian community haunts officers of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, or the RCMP. Tofield, located in the province of Alberta, made headlines in 1977 when the body of a murder victim was found in a septic tank just outside of town. Detectives dubbed him Septic Tank Sam, but I'll be referring to him as Sam Doe or Tofield Doe. To this day, his identity and the identity of his killer, or killers, remains a mystery, and 4 decades later, he is still nameless. Wednesday, April 13th, 1977, was a busy one for Charlie and Mavis McLeod, who were building a new farmhouse on their property, located 8 miles west of Tofield. They wanted to replace the old farmhouse, abandoned 2 years earlier, and the task of the day was installing the septic tank, but they were missing a pump. A frugal couple, the McLeods, decided to use the still-functioning pump from the abandoned farmhouse instead of buying a new one. Charlie drove to the old, nearly 6-foot-deep septic tank and began to remove the cover. But something inside the muck caught his eye. A dark gray wool sock, a shoe, and a body, face down in his septic tank. Without hesitation, Charlie drove to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police Detachment in Tofield, alerting the authorities of his gruesome discovery. Within 6 hours, Corporal Ed Lammerts of the Tofield Detachment and a second officer scooped out the murky sludge with an empty ice cream pail. The remains were transported to the medical examiner in nearby Edmonton, and what little evidence they found was bagged. None of that evidence suggested the McLeod septic tank had been anything but a dump site, especially considering the quicklime surrounding the body. According to Kate Emery, who has a PhD in mortuary archaeology, quicklime is a chemical compound known as calcium oxide and is made through the thermal decomposition of limestone or other materials containing calcium carbonate in the lime kiln. In fiction, quicklime is used to effectively and quickly dispose of a body, but in reality, when it mixes with water, only superficial burning takes place, and it can actually dry out body tissue instead of destroy it. And what was left wove a tragic story. The victim suffered greatly before perishing in what officers described as, quote, one of the most vindictive and sadistic crimes they'd ever worked. The medical examiner deduced from scorch marks and the victim's clothes that he was tied up, beaten, and burned numerous times with cigarettes and a butane blowtorch. 2 gunshot wounds punctuated the head and chest, though it's possible there were more undetectable surface wounds. He'd also been sexually mutilated, so viciously that the Edmonton medical examiner took months to deduce the remains were in fact male. Estimated to be between 23 to 32 at first, he had a medium build and was right-handed. Sam Doe's teeth, all intact, revealed some fillings, signs of recent dental work, and signs he'd likely suffered an illness at approximately 5 years old, though the specific ailment wasn't named. He'd been dumped in the tank 3 to 4 months prior, but later investigators extended that time range to 4 months to a year, as early as April of 1976. And yet, no one came forward looking for a man matching his description. After retiring, Corporal Lammerts told the Globe and Mail, "Time is against us. If only we could just get the victim's name, we could maybe figure this out." However, he didn't have much hope for that happening. The Edmonton RCMP felt that Sam's killer was familiar with the Tofield area and knew the McLeod's property was a perfect place to ensure the body wouldn't be found. They also thought Sam was homeless or lived a transient lifestyle, possibly as a construction worker or farmhand based on his clothes, and they definitely felt he wasn't from the Alberta area. Even after going through over 250 missing person reports, they were no closer to Sam Doe's real name. So they decided to disclose details of the horrific murder to the public in an appeal for information. The some 1,200 Tofield residents were horrified, their illusion of safety shattered. If the killer knew where to dump a body, were they walking amongst them, shopping in their stores under the guise of a neighborly face? Paranoid farmers checked their own septic tanks and properties for any signs of bones. Whispers and fear overran the town for months after, and police chased down all leads, but each met a dead end, and media coverage died down. In June 1977, dentists all across Alberta received Sam Doe's dental records for comparison, directly to their offices in national bulletins and dental magazines. No match was ever made. The nameless killer roamed free while Sam Doe was quietly buried in an unmarked plot in Edmonton Cemetery. None of this ever deterred detectives' enthusiasm to keep the case alive, though. In 1978, Edmonton RCMP Corporal Jamie Graham pushed for more media coverage, which led to several more dead-end tips and even a few confessions to the murder, all of them hoaxes. Corporal Graham told Peter B. Smith in his book CSI Alberta, "The chance of solving this one isn't all that good, but I don't want the person who did this to ever relax." But Corporal Graham wasn't done digging just yet. He had the remains exhumed, placing his faith in a new forensic method. In 1979, he contacted Dr. Clyde Snow, a forensic pathologist with the Stovall Museum at the University of Oklahoma in the United States. Dr. Snow, along with medical illustrator Betty Gatliff, developed a process of reconstructing faces from skulls, a newer practice at the time. This process, out of 60 skeletal remains, led to the identification of more than 2/3 of their cases. Corporal Graham personally flew the box of remains to Oklahoma and met with Dr. Snow and Gatliff. After taking dozens of measurements on Sam's skull and bones and taking DNA samples, he entered the data into a computer program he'd developed and said the following in CSI Alberta. "I'm damn sure he's a native, and I reckon he was 35 years old." It wasn't an exact science. Snow knew Sam could have been anywhere from 26 to 40 years old, or of Caucasian heritage. But now police had more possibilities to explore. Gatliff created a clay model of what Sam's face might have looked like, barring what they couldn't tell. A beard, freckles, if he wore glasses or had any scars or tattoos, etc. Still, the RCMP hoped the victim's likeness might trigger someone's memory and might crack the case wide open. At first, many people called the authorities, saying they recognized Sam's face, but unfortunately, after delving deeper into each claim, none were related to the Tofield Doe. Several years pass with no new leads, so in 1983, investigators made the decision to release details of the murder never made public. Where the scorch marks on his sleeves ended seemed to indicate he'd been tied down while tortured, possibly to a bed, as his body was wrapped in a yellow sheet and secured with nylon rope before he was left in the septic tank. That wasn't all, though. The bottoms of his feet and legs were burned, and the crotch of his jeans removed with farm shears, presumably before he was sexually mutilated. It's unclear to me how police know that farm shears were used specifically, but regardless, this man clearly suffered immense and unimaginable pain before he was murdered, and the case went cold for years. We've briefly discussed law enforcement's beliefs that Sam Doe was likely a migrant worker not originally from Alberta, who was possibly Native or Caucasian, and anywhere from 26 to 40 years of age. His killer or killers seemed familiar with the area based on the dump site, and by how violent the man was tortured beforehand, it didn't appear to be a random attack. That being said, it's entirely possible the dump site was a lucky break for the killer, and it's possible the killer didn't know their victim. In fact, with this case, because we know so little, there is a vast array of potential narratives. According to the book CSI Alberta, the residents of Tofield whispered numerous speculations. A vengeful woman who caught her husband cheating, or a victim of abuse getting revenge on their perpetrator, hence the intense sexual mutilation. Others speculated he was in a gambling or drug debt, that he was the victim of a serial killer, or the victim of a hate crime for being native, or maybe he'd been homosexual. There's no real concrete absolutes here, but that hasn't stopped the web sleuth community from wading through the many theories. Web sleuth user 77 Nancy Drew found Sam Doe strikingly similar to the missing persons file of a 27-year-old named Edward Joseph Arcand, who disappeared on June 8, 1975 from Coleman, Alberta, around 5.5 hours drive south of Tofield. Edward, a native man with black hair and brown eyes, was last seen leaving his home in his 1969 Ford Falcon station wagon, which was later abandoned 50 miles away on Highway 940. There are many similarities to Sam Doe: his age and height range, race, the time of disappearance, even the last clothing items Edward last wore, a blue denim jacket and blue jeans. But there were also inconsistencies. Authorities didn't believe Sam Doe was from the area, and while Edward Arcand did have some fillings, he was missing 6 teeth, while all of Sam Doe's teeth were intact. 77 Nancy Drew later contacted authorities, who confirmed that Edward Joseph Arcand, while an excellent find, wasn't their Sam Doe. Based on the response, it seems they were very receptive to tips about the decades-old case. Other web sleuthers have suggested William Campbell Underhill, missing from Minneapolis, Minnesota in 1969, John Graham Thompson from Mountain View, California, missing in February of 1977, and Brian Guberman, missing from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, since June 1974. So far, it appears that these are all just suggestions, and I wasn't able to find if they'd been officially ruled out yet, and until they are, suggestions are really all we have. The McLeod's old property is currently part of a subdivision, and the place where Sam Doe's body was found now long forgotten. Many in Alberta are unaware of Sam's tragic story, but the McLeods had a hard time forgetting. They received infrequent calls from strangers who thought Sam might have been a missing relative. Still, Sam's case is well known to the local RCMP detachments, as tips have trickled in over the years. The most recent of those tips was in 2007, and at the time, 4 threads of possibility were being investigated, and as far as I know, there's been no updates to that. In January of 1995, investigators and Dr. Owen Beatty, an anthropologist with the University of Alberta, worked together to create a digital reconstruction of how Sam might have looked. One clean-shaven, one with a mustache, and one bearded. Another media campaign launched with these reconstructions. However, there are really only 2 images of these reconstructions I can find online, and it's unclear from which era of the investigation they were from. Authorities do still have DNA samples for comparison, which will be entered into the RCMP's National Children and Missing Persons Unidentified Remains database. According to the Edmonton Journal, the database, launching in 2018, allows for family looking for lost loved ones to offer their own DNA for comparison. It seems only time will tell if we'll know Sam Doe's true name, along with the motive behind his heinous and tragic murder. Sam Doe was a Native American or Caucasian man with a medium build, standing anywhere from 5 foot 5 inches to 5 foot 10 inches, and weighing anywhere from 145 to 180 pounds. He was anywhere from 26 to 40 years old, had brown to dark hair, was right-handed, and likely suffered an illness at the age of 5. He was found wearing a blue Levi work shirt with snap buttons, a white t-shirt, blue jeans, gray wool socks, and brown imitation wallaby shoes. DNA and dental comparisons are available. If you have any information about the identity of or the circumstances surrounding Sam Doe's murder, please contact the Tofield Royal Canadian Mounted Police at 780-662-3353. All case numbers and sources for information on this case can be found in the description below. Special thanks to the Patreon family. The names you see on screen are just some of the people who financially contribute to this channel. Whether they are passionate about cases like Sam Doe's or the other dark content on this channel, their support cannot be overstated. If you are interested in supporting the channel, information is in the description, but even if you only continue to support by watching, thank you. Thank you for giving Sam Doe a moment of your time, and special thanks to law enforcement and to author Peter B. Smith for the detailed information in his book, CSI Alberta. No matter what you choose to believe or what you speculate, I ask you only for respect in the comments below, and though they called him John Doe, he deserves to reclaim his true name and deserves justice for his murder. Thank you for watching the video. Exposure to these cases is highly important, and to those of you who support this channel by watching, contributing, or buying merchandise, thank you. If you want to see other unsolved cases or dark content, be sure to subscribe to this channel. Stay safe, friends, and have a good night.